Hey, you're listening to Profoundish. My name is Alex. I'm going to be joined by Weston, as always. And today is an episode all about operating systems. Whether it's Windows, MacOS, Android, we will have something to say about it. And make sure you stick around, though, because later on, we're going to be doing a tier list of some of the most popular Microsoft applications. I'm talking Paint. I'm talking Windows Movie Maker. I'm talking Minesweeper. That and more on this episode of Profoundish. So for my day job, I was instructed to make an instructional video for customers who purchase an item. And so when they purchase an item, they need to approve certain customizations of the item. And they have to go through like an e-document, e-sign process, right?
Okay.
And let me tell you something. So this ended up being like a 5-minute video just to tell customers how to sign something. You have to initial a few places and sign. But at first, I remember thinking, like, how do people just not understand how to do this, right? But then I thought, well, it's okay. Some people maybe are older, less prone to understand the technology, or any age, doesn't matter. You may not completely understand how the e-documents work. So I thought, okay, so I wrote the script, I did all this stuff, and then I was trying so hard to not sound condescending, But I also think part of that was just in my own head, like, just from my perspective, because listening back, it doesn't sound condescending. It just sounds like I'm telling them how to do it. But once I did it, this is the funny part. Once I did it, and so for anyone listening for my day job, the things that these customers are doing, like, it's not part of what I do with my work. I'm usually the guy who's making the videos. I do marketing. I do all kinds of stuff. So I actually have never gone through that document signing process before because I never needed to, because I'm not purchasing the products that the company I work for offers. So I had to learn it first in order to make the video, right? So it's 5 minutes long because it's actually kind of complicated. Because it actually kind of is, I understand why. So you have to, I started with the email. Open your email. You got a document sent to you. Click on the email, open the email, or open the document from the email. It'll open up a new browser. And then I understand why it gets confusing, because once you open up the document you need to sign, there's a whole nother section above the document that says, well, first you need to agree to the terms of the electronic disclosure agreement. So I'm already thinking, if you're Betty Sue and you're 75 years old and you're just trying to go on and sign this document, I can see why she'd be confused, because you have to agree to you basically, well, you get it. You basically have to agree to be able to do an e-sign, right?
Right. Well, that's because they're probably doing the e-sign tack through a third party or something that actually made it. So it's you have to agree to the third party that they can use your agreements and information, blah, 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 to pass along this information. Now you have to agree to the information.
So exactly. So then the information's presented in front of them. And then what happens is this. And once again, I'm trying to think from the 75-year-old's perspective, right? So it goes to a part you have to signature or initial a few things. So you click on initial, and then there's a window that pops up, and then it gives you 3 versions of your initials, all written differently, probably to each kind of match maybe which one looks more like yours, which I'm already thinking that's going to be super confusing. It's I just want to initial this here. What's going on? But then you also have the option to draw with your mouse.
Yeah.
So long story short, I simplified it and I didn't go over any of that stuff. I just pretty much said, I did explain why that popped up, but then I just said, just click this, go here, because most people aren't going to really care. But it's kind of ridiculous. If you look from that angle, I completely understand why this video needed to be made. There was a lot of people complaining about not understanding how to go through this document signing process. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to come forward and say, yeah, that was kind of, I can see why it would be complicated for people.
You're not wrong, but also there's,
Remember, you're not 75, Weston. You're
correct.
not.
It's technology literacy. I just feel like okay, I know I'm not 70, so hear me out. I'm going to be wildly ageist here for a minute. All right, so you're all free to hate me. No,
I mean, I just was, so don't worry about it.
But I just feel like in a lot of cases when it comes to technology, because in my day job, I do deal with people that don't know how to use technology all the time. The difference is it's actually not my job to help you. So when you work, if you work in the restaurant business, it's very common these days for your restaurant to perhaps have an app that you can order food from, get coupons, blah, blah, blah. Little news flash for those of you that might not realize this, but your local restaurant probably has literally nothing to do with how that app functions, what's on it, where the buttons are, not a darn thing. So I'll get people that will call me on the phone wanting to ask about the app that I don't even have downloaded on my own phone. Or so I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
And what gets me is that I just want to shout, just play with it. Just read. Like if you can't read and you're illiterate, that's different. But just read the information, peruse the site, scroll through, take some time. The first time you've ever used this app probably shouldn't be the time that you have 12 seconds in your day to use it. Take some time, learn the app, look through it, explore it. Turn this into an adventure of technology and learn it at your own pace. You know what I mean? So for me, with your e-doc, you're going to get an email. It's going to ask you to do a thing. It's going to ask you to click on a link. I suggest you click on that link. You will be presented information. Read the information. If it asks you to sign, I got something for you. You'll have to sign.
Decide it. I get it.
It's not complicated, but I get what you're saying, where it's it's a lot of information and words thrown at your face, but take a breath. And breathe.
I know. And you're totally right. Well, that makes me think about when I used to work in wireless retail, and it kind of was my job. Actually, technically it wasn't because I was in sales. I wasn't there to teach you how to use it. But
yeah, you're not.
But
any
point is, right? Exactly. But people would ask questions about their phones and stuff all the time, and usually it was older folks. Once again, I went to a whole thing about. I always think about my father, who is. I mean, he's 70. He's not quite 75, but he's still on the older side, who is great with his phone. He's great with tech. He keeps up with that sort of stuff. So it makes me start to realize, and I used to really, hound, my coworkers on this when we'd all complain about it in the break room, oh, this old fart doesn't know how to, blah, 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 blah. I said, and I would agree, and I'd say, you know what? It's a willingness. It's all about having the willingness to learn it. It goes to what you said, too. It's to slow down, explore. If you're willing to try it, you may not get everything, right? But I bet you if you just tried, you'd have a little bit better understanding of the fundamentals than you would if you never tried. Now, willingness might also, or, you get to a certain age, you'll want to do it, I'm sure. But what a lot of people would do is when they would come in, they'd say, I don't know how to do it. And there'd be times where we'd kind of be like, well, what have you tried? I don't know, just fix it. Right? That's how I know it's a lack of willingness. And it'd be one thing they said, I've tried, I went here, I did all of this stuff, I don't get it, can you please help? Because those people, I can explain probably why it's what you tried haven't worked, and maybe how you can prevent this from happening in the future, or whatever the issue may be. It's that's what drove me crazy. It wasn't the fact that people needed help. People need help all the time. That's why tech support exists. It's the people who didn't even have the willingness and were too, frankly, if I may say, lazy at times. There's exceptions, but lazy to even give it a shot. That passion for my old job's coming back out. But
yeah, I don't know. I just, it's those who are willing to help themselves will find that they're going to receive the most help. You know what I mean? If you're helpless, right, and you refuse to do anything for yourself, then expecting others to help you is a dangerous place to put yourself.
Because there's going to come that time where no one's going to help you.
And then you're just
screwed. Time when no one can.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I get it for like your job. It's like, we want to make this video. I just have this weird like suspicion that it's like, okay, we made a video to help people who don't understand technology understand this technology. In the back of my head, I'm like, how do they know how to get to the video?
I know. That's exactly what I said.
Like, they're not gonna know how to get there anyway. And I'm like, oh, I guess
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
I mean,
anyway,
you made it. It exists, and great. But I don't know. That's just. I don't mean to be ageist, but here I am, like, oh, these old people.
I know.
And it could be younger people too that are maybe a little less tech savvy, and I get that. But like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, just read.
It was. I will say this though. Like, no complaints. I enjoy my job. And it was a different kind of video. I've never done like a how to screen record kind of video before, so that was really fun to edit and put together because it was different, right? So that was fun.
You never screen recorded anything before?
I mean, I never did I've screen recorded before, but I've never done like a screen record. Here's how to do this.
Okay.
You know? So, and I did it all in real time. I thought about script. I mean, I did script it out, but I read the script while I used my mouse and went here and did there and did all that stuff. So, but that's actually, believe it or not, still a fairly, it's not foreign to me, but it's definitely not something I do a lot. I wasn't even sure how to screen record at first. I ended up doing it through just OBS, and it was fine. Yeah. But it was interesting. And you know what's interesting about OBS and doing this whole process was that I was using it on Windows 10. And I'm trying to get there.
I feel it. I can feel the shift happening.
Well, we're pretty much already there because this episode, Weston, is the operating systems episode. Pew, 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 pew. Operating systems. Woohoo! We all love a good OS. You're rocking Windows 10 on your computer too, right?
Oh God, I think so. Yes. The newest one's 11, right?
Right. I don't know anything about 11.
I have not upgraded to 11. I upgraded my mom to 11 because her computer is newer and she like automatically qualified for just an operating system upgrade apparently natively. And I'm like, well, that's fine. We'll do that. So I got her through it, but my computer is still running 10.
Right. So. Well, I have no issues. I like 10 a lot. I like what 10's become, and I have no issues with it. I always feel weird because, Windows, it's always hit or miss every time they do a new OS launch.
It's weird. I'm just so easy to please, I guess. Like, I've had several Windows operating systems, and that includes 8, not 8.1, 8. People hated 8. Yeah. I was like, 8's fine. Mm-hmm. But people hated it. And
really?
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
Oh my God.
It was a little built more geared for like 2-in-1 PCs or touch screens and stuff that I didn't actually have. So there were features or functionalities to it that I just didn't have a need for and therefore didn't use. And so to that end, 8.1 obviously was actually more geared to me than 8 was, but like it was fine. But everyone was very upset with 8. That's what I remember. I remember people not liking 8.
Oh, dude, 8 came out around the time that you and I, because you were with me when I got it, picked up my fancy schmancy gaming laptop at the time, just from like the UPS center or wherever it was. And I remember at the time being really excited about Windows 8. Like, I didn't think about its functionality. I just thought about how pretty it all looked. And because I saw a lot of like videos for it before I bought it. I bought this in 2013. I'm not sure when actually 8 came out. 2012 or something? I don't know.
It would have been around there.
So while you look that up, I'll say this. It's I bet you it was 2012 now I think about it.
Yeah, it was October 2012.
Okay,
so we're getting close to 13. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were pretty new at the time, and I just remember thinking it looked so pretty. It was like there's a lot of like purples and reds and blues, and then I remember turning on my laptop, getting it started, super excited to video edit and do all this stuff. I just started my YouTube channel at the time, like at least the one that people recognize. Yeah. And what are you laughing at?
Because I just had a really funny thought for me, because you're going to tell me that 8 was a nightmare to edit on probably. And in 2012, I was still using Windows Movie Maker, so I probably had no idea that it was bad.
Well, you probably didn't, because I remember what happened was I would. That's hilarious. You were using Movie Maker in 2012.
I was a psycho. I was using Windows Movie Maker and Paint, baby.
Oh my God. Well, we'll talk about those. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but I don't want to get too far into that right now. But yeah, I just remember I would sit down and I liked it, and I was trying to figure things out, and it took me probably like a month, and then I realized something, and I realized, where the hell is the start menu? Like, it's gone. And it took me weeks to realize this, because I thought that, because at first you're really like, you're taken by the prettiness of it, because it was pretty unique for the time, like that really tile system, and they were really trying to be kind of futuristic, and this is the future, and blah 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 blah, and yeah, it would work for like a Surface or like a touchscreen thing. I get kind of like what you said, and then I had this realization in my basement, like, what the hell am I supposed to do without a start button? And then I realized that whole menu was supposed to be your start button, I guess. Like your start menu, I mean.
Yeah.
But the problem is that you could surprisingly very little to customize your tiles at the beginning. So like it was just really bulky, and there was a bunch of apps I didn't want on there that I couldn't delete. Like not like it, anyway, point is 8.1 came out and I was much happier. But that was the only time I had an operating system, and I've been using them quite a bit since I actually used 98 a lot when I was very young. And then moving on from there, we always kind of had operating systems that it always took us a handful of years before we'd convert. So like when XP was out, we were still kind of rocking 98 for a while, and then we eventually would switch. But that was the only one I would say that I had a real issue with, just functionally, was 8.
Yeah, that was the one that I think, if you're used to the Windows ecosystem, 8 was a radical departure from anything you would have been used to. I think I remember XP, we might have had Vista on a system at one point in time. We're talking about like when I was very young. Because I feel like we had a Windows 90 something, but I don't think it was 98. I almost think we had a 95 or something. Okay. So we had a few of those older ones, and then eventually the ones that I actually remember the most using for myself when I was more into computers versus I was a kid using the family computer would have been, I think the earliest was Windows 7 on the first computer, the first laptop I owned, I think was the earliest.
And 7 for a long time was kind of the gold standard. Like you'd see it a lot, and it was a really good operating system. There's still some places that still use 7, like public, like workplaces and stuff like that. Probably just because it works, and I think a part of that has to do with basically what Vista did. Because I was going to say my second least favorite, but not nearly as strong dislike, but was Vista. Because so Vista came obviously before 8, and XP was the Windows 7 of its time. XP worked so well, people loved XP, and it was very unique for the time too. It kind of changed the look. It had that blue kind of, very early 2000s look now, but it was very of the time. And when Vista came out, it looked really awesome. I was super excited about it. That's when I got my first laptop. It was a Dell Studio. I remember that. And it was basically like the next up from just the standard like Dell laptops. This one was meant for more like, like editing and stuff like that, whatever. That's where I edited a lot of our old videos, was on that laptop. And that came with Vista. And the thing about Vista that sucked, and I didn't understand computers as well at the time, but now that I know computers a lot better, I know why I disliked it. I disliked it because nothing would work. Like I'd plug things in and it wouldn't work, or like a lot of audio issues. Well, the problem is that not converting, but just going from Windows XP to Vista, what happened with Vista was that there's a lot of driver issues. So like if you were upgrading, and it has never been this bad with any upgrade since, but there would be so many issues with drivers and just driver support that if you don't know anything about computers, and I didn't really know that much at that time, I didn't know that I could update drivers and I could do all this and that. And this was an issue across the board. Like you look it up, that was one of people's biggest issues, is that there's a lot of compatibility problems, which I think eventually got worked out, but I think it was kind of too little too late. The reputation was just kind of stained at that point. But I don't know if you remember Vista, though, because it also had, like, they kind of went the Apple way for a while. They're trying to kind of compete with, like, Mac, because they had, like, this big, if you look up, like, the desktop, you'd see it. They had this, like, big bar at the top of the screen, and it had, like, all your big applications. They were big and pretty looking. It looked a lot like a Mac, like an iMac or something. I don't know if you're familiar with how Vista looked, but
I'm trying to remember, because I feel like either we had a Vista, or maybe it was on a computer, a school computer or something. I'm struggling to remember like using Vista. I know I did. I'm trying to like look up Vista, images and stuff, but like
Vista, if you look at it, Vista looks so 2007 to me. Like, if you look at that, it just looks so much from that time. The shiny interface, everything has a shine to it. Everything's so, like, matte and boring now, but back then they had a lot more personality. I did like how it looked.
I think also just, like, the shine, right? Like, everything being, like, sparkly and shiny, and, like, that was the idea of, like, moving forward into the future, whereas now, like, modern contemporary looks are a lot more just, like, we want everything to be as simple as possible.
Yeah, you're right. I remember we were talking about that with, like, logos. Everything's just getting simplified, and everything just looks uniform and the same. And now what's driving me crazy, this is kind of a side tangent, it's like, now everyone's going retro, but everybody's doing it. Like,
right.
Like Pepsi has their old logo back, Burger King's doing it, like there's a bunch. It just, I don't know. People, I guess everyone's just trying to compete, I guess, and just keep up with it, but there's no personalities anymore, in my opinion. It all just seems very...
It's because everyone's competing with each other.
paste.
And if something starts to work with one company, one brand wants to, reimagine their logo for one thing or another. And if that starts to work, then you just don't want to be the brand that's left behind. So you have to do it too. And you're like, well, we could rebrand, yeah, right. We don't want to be the brand left behind.
Right.
So like if the nostalgia thing's working for that one brand, well, we don't want to try something different and be wrong and fail. So we might as well copy and just go our nostalgic or, our contemporary or our shiny or, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember. I just don't think I remember Vista very well, which is weird, 7 didn't come out much later than that. So like 7's the one that I remember more.
So you remember 7 now. You said that was your first laptop was 7, right? That's what you said. Are you familiar? You said you used possibly 95. Did you use XP? Was that a part of your?
I'm pretty sure we did. Well, XP was like everywhere. Everybody used XP.
Yeah.
So like, we had XP. Unless I'm inventing that memory, we had XP at least on the family computer eons ago, and I think it worked pretty well. But when I was younger, like as a kid or whatever, I didn't know a lot about computers. Like I could use them. I just didn't know a lot about like behind the scenes and stuff. So like, I can stick CDs in and like click on buttons. And somehow that made me really good at computers for some reason. But like, I didn't really know the difference between operating systems. Back then I didn't know PC versus Mac, or I didn't know any of that crap. I was just like, there's a magic electrical box that sits on the family, like, those weird wardrobes, but for like computers that used to be really common. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
like, it wasn't just a desk.
Ago, yeah.
It was a massive freaking thing that like had doors that you opened and closed to like shelter the computer. So we had a massive computer.
Our friend Logan
wardrobe.
had one of those.
Like everybody did. I think
Yeah.
back when computers were just a lot more like luxury items, because now everybody's got a computer, but like they used to be very luxury items. So I guess you needed to have this massive cabinet for them to like protect them or something. I don't know.
I guess. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I know with XP, that was my real first dive into like using the internet. Kind of, it's going to sound like I'm going somewhere bad with this, but I'm not. But like using the internet unmonitored, like just going onto the internet and just like discovering things. And like, now granted, I'm sure I was monitored more than I probably remember. But like that's when I remember I used to love Legos, right? And I thought, I wonder if there's a Legos.com. And I went and there was a Legos.com, and I would play some awesome games on there. And I had Yahoo Messenger, and I would like chat with friends. I wasn't chatting with strangers. I had parents that monitored me. Okay, everybody, it's okay, I promise. But I just remember like that was my first real exposure to like the internet and like playing games on a computer a lot. I mean, like I played games on my older ones, but like playing like games that are online, just like browser based. But it was just a really wild time. Really just with the internet in general then. But I was also going to ask you though about, well, I guess Macs. I guess we can go there really quick.
I hate them.
Probably. Well, you know why I don't like them. I don't like them because it's really, well, there's a couple reasons that we don't have to get into because both of us are more Windows guys. But it starts with this. I want to go to the right corner of my screen to exit out of a window. Why do you make me go to the left side of the screen to exit out of a window? I hate it.
Well, they had to be different. They had to be different from Windows.
I know, I get it. And another thing, too, is like file navigation and file searching is a lot more complicated. Once again, it's all just perspective. If you started with Mac, it probably all just makes sense. But
yeah,
like my dad and I will always get in like these little, not really arguments, but little jabs at each other about Windows and Mac because my dad's a Mac guy. And I don't get it. So like I'm like him and I will like record music when I'm like at his house sometimes and he'll be navigating, he'll have an issue. And I can usually help with the computer issue, but I'm like, Dad, you're on your own. I can't help you if there's a problem with your Mac. I just can't do it. I don't know where to even start. It just functions. It just works so differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all of it does.
They're a different beast.
You know, you have to click on the, like, PC has a Windows key, Mac has some other nonsense key, and then everything's backwards, and I don't know. And then everything's proprietary. Apple has to do everything Apple's way. You don't have like third parties that do things this way, that way, or the other. And I don't, like you said, if I had started with Macs, then it would be second nature. But I'm with you. Same thing. Like, I remember the first time I'd ever actually sat down to use a Mac at all. I'm like, well, it's a computer. Because this, again, I was younger, so I'm like, a computer is a computer is a computer is a computer. It's all the same to me. I was wrong. I didn't know Macs played by their own rules, all right? Because in the PC world, there's a lot of different PCs. Yeah, they're all running Windows, but you can have a Dell, an Inspiron, you can have whatever. You had all these, a Gateway, you had the Cow, you had the giant Cow computer Gateway. So anyway, you had all these different computers. I'm like, well, okay, a Mac is just, you know, a PC, but it's called Mac, right? You know, it's just a Mac PC. No, it's its own thing. So, like, the first time I sat down, I'm like, all right, I need to go to the internet. All right, Internet Explorer, not here. Firefox, nowhere to be found. How do I get on the internet? Safari. What the hell is a Safari? Okay, Safari. Opens it up. I'm navigating Safari. I don't know how to use it. I need to close the window. There's no X. Like you said, I'm like, I can't close it. I now can't get back to my desktop. I don't know how to get to the desktop. The internet is in my face, and I don't know how to get rid of it. And then you've got like the stoplight lights, right? The red, yellow, green. I'm like, I don't know what green does. I'm already going. I'm already here. So I was like, I felt like the kind of person what we were just making fun of for being ageist, right? That like, I didn't want to take any time to learn this system. I sat down, was completely just like out of my element, and I'm like, I hate this. I would rather go back to my other thing that I know how to use. This is a nightmare. And I did. I dropped it. I won't touch a Mac if I can help it to this day. I hate them. I won't touch Mac computers, iPhones. I'm not an Apple guy. And then there's the whole business side of it. The company itself, I'm not a fan of. So that's a whole separate thing. But just the user experience was, I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing, and I hate it.
Right, exactly. I'm kind of a hybrid. So, like you brought up like iPhone, right? So I currently use iOS. I'm debating. I'll eventually upgrade phones or maybe even downgrade. That's a different conversation. But I might go back to something more kind of just like Android again. I'm not sure yet, but I've used both a lot. And one thing, I can't speak enough about the Macs to really say this, but one thing I will say about the iPhones is that now for someone like you, for example, you use your Android, I feel like you won't see it this way, but I think it's once again just because you're used to what you're used to. I do feel like from someone who used to work in the industry and sell all kinds of phones, different kinds, different versions of Android, stock and all the buttered up ones and just different kinds, and then all these iPhones, I've found, using both a ton in my years, I feel like if you were just to first just enter into a phone, iPhone is going to make more sense. And here's why I feel like it's going to make more sense. And I think it's because it hides everything from you. It hides what it's doing and just says, do this and it'll do this, right? With an Android, I mean, you can set it up that way, but with an iPhone, it really is, you click I mean, you can do it on an Android too. I don't even know if I'm going to get across what I'm trying to say, but I just feel like it's just so much more intuitive to a brand new user, and it's a much simplified experience. But the the downside of that, though, is that you do lose any sort of customization that you might want to do with an OS if you have any sort of decent chops with actually understanding it, right? And that's probably the worst part about iPhone, is that every phone looks the same. You're going to get what you're going to get, and that's it. But once again, it goes back to its upside. I feel like where if you want a very intuitive, just you do this to do this, all right, it works, right? With an Android, you can do this to go there, but you can also do this, pull down here, go there to go there, right? There's like a lot of different pathways you can take to do the same thing. With an iPhone, you have one pathway for one thing. Does that make sense? I'm kind of simplifying. But
I have to pretend that it makes sense because the words that you're saying make sense, but I so adamantly refuse to use an iPhone. I don't know what, like, to me, because you're saying, oh, it's so much more intuitive. I'm like, I don't feel like I struggled to pick up the Android. So for context, everybody, I'm a guy
but you're
who
also used to it.
So you're going to say that, and you're not wrong. But I also encountered technology much later, right, compared to a lot of people. Like, people my age are like, oh, yeah, I remember when I was in 6th grade and I was on AOL and I was talking to people with my friends on chat. I'm like, I didn't have internet. That, like, we had dial-up internet for research period only. I didn't grow up playing Flash games on the computer. I didn't grow up talking to people on the computer. I didn't get any of that crap until I was in high school. So people already had phones. I didn't have a phone until high school, and it wasn't a smartphone, so we didn't have that. Not everyone had smartphones then either, but I just feel like I adopted technology late. So when it came to adopting a phone, I barely knew anything about computers as it was. I just was interested in them. So I picked it up quick. So when it came to like adopting a phone, I feel like the Android phone isn't complicated to adopt. Now, I don't know that the iPhone is more or less, but I'm saying the Androids, for as simple as people say like the iPhones are, as simple as they say they are, I don't understand what makes the Android more complicated. Because you're like, there's one path to a thing. And I'm like, isn't that worse though? Because if I'm looking for a thing, if I'm trying to get somewhere on my phone and there's only one way to get there and I can't find the one way, there's no other freaking way. But if there's several ways to get to the same thing on an Android phone, I'm going to stumble onto one of them, right? Am I crazy?
I get it. Well, first of all, and keep in mind too, like I do actually, I know what I just said might sound like it's kind of like going against it, but I agree with you because I do really appreciate, especially like, actually, it's funny, I was about to say stock Android, but that's not true. I actually really prefer like Galaxy's twist on it. I like their coat of paint on it the best. I always loved my Galaxy phones.
Yeah,
but,
the Galaxy,
anyway,
the couple Galaxies I've had have been good to me. I've also had LG. And those were older phones. You did
LG, that's right. Yeah,
originally those were actually those were the dumb phones, actually, not the smart ones. But like, I haven't had an issue.
And that's the thing. I think it goes back. I guess this must be the ageist episode because I do think about, and I am kind of being devil's advocate a little bit, but I think about the old person again, and maybe it's from my experience, kind of a little bit more on the front lines with it. But God, there was a lot less issues with. There was actually more iPhone issues because those phones, in my opinion, some models just kind of suck, but it's because the phones suck. There was always more issues with like older folks with their Androids. And once again, I can't relate because I know how to navigate one just fine and I like it. And I like you can go multiple ways to do multiple things and customize it and all that stuff. But that's just kind of from my experience, kind of seeing it. At least when you're teaching somebody, it's like, oh, you want to do this? You click this and you go there. You can't screw it up, But I do see your point. I completely see your point, and that's why I kind of miss my Android. I miss being able to go to my settings by pulling down on the top of the screen and hitting the gear. You can't do that on an iPhone. You got to click the settings button.
I also hate that, like, if you want to do anything Apple related, you have to join a cult, right? I don't remember why I was doing this, but I remember that all I needed to do is I needed to make some kind of Apple account to access something. It might have been podcast related, actually, for a Hasty podcast. I don't remember. Where it's like, I'm trying to get a thing onto iTunes. I can't do it. You have to have an account, Apple account, whatever. I'm like, I have literally no Apple devices. Can I please go to apple.com or something similar, make an account, make an email account, make anything? And they're like, no, you have to open up your iPhone. I'm like, I don't have one of those. Well, okay, open up your Mac. I don't have one of those. I just want the account. I want to go onto any goddamn computer on the planet and have an Apple account. Well, you're not a part of the cult, so you can't. And I'm like, what?
That stuff's the worst.
What?
That stuff's the worst. And that's that brilliant marketing, and that's how they get people hooked in and they're stuck. Because everything also, you talk about like the cult, but then you also think about the ecosystem. If you have an iPad, also, it syncs up really well. And by the way, just by sheer functionality, it does sync up very well and very easily.
I should hope so. Since that's their whole thing.
Here's where I am. I'm actually, once again, I don't consider myself an Apple person, but I do have an iPhone, and I actually have an iPad that I use. Now, here's the thing, though. I'm kind of one of those, I'm not part of the cult, and here's why I say it. I don't use any of the Apple features. Everything I use is Google, which is kind of the irony. So everything's on my Google Drive. I use Google Maps. I delete all the Google apps. I don't use Safari. I use Chrome because then it all still syncs up, right? So I have my iPad with Chrome, my phone with Chrome, my computer has Chrome, and everything's on Google Drive. So, but like, and then some people who are Apple would probably look at me and go, well, what the hell's the point?
I don't know.
Like,
they're kind of right. You should have just not had an iPad, because my tablet is a 2-in-1 Chromebook, because I do everything Google. So when I was looking for something that's kind of tablet size, I'm like, well, Google would be helpful, because that's what I use is Google Drive and Google Docs and Google Sheets. Yeah. YouTube is Google, and I'm like, yeah, I want a Google tablet. And then I saw a 2-in-1 Chromebook for sale, and I was like, well, that's great, because then it can be a tablet, it can be a laptop, it's both. Let's do that.
Are those powerful enough to like do some like decent video editing?
Mine, no, God, no. But that's also why why I bought it. I bought it for lights, like to do typing and to do like internet searches. Yeah. I did not get that thing for editing. So there's probably some out there that could. I haven't done that much research. We actually talked about this briefly in an episode once. It's like, I don't want to ever video edit remotely. I want to be in front of my massive PC if I'm video editing, but I also don't travel for video editing.
Right. So I want to travel and be able to video edit and then take it back to the studio when I'm back and really do the heavy stuff, you know?
Right.
Anyway, I'm just looking at that because honestly, I probably would have gotten something like that if it weren't for, once again, my old job I used to have, because they'd have all these deals, and I thought, I'll get this iPad Pro, because those things are pretty nice in terms of just their power. But once again, it goes back to functionality and all that. I make it work, though. I got a little keyboard thing with it, and I type all my VGM Quest videos on it. Shout out to VGM Quest. Go follow that channel.
Yeah.
Hey, we've been talking a while about OSs. We got on a whole Apple rant, and that's always fun.
Yes, always.
It really is. I got one more rant. Here's where my biggest rant comes in. Then we'll pivot, I promise.
Okay.
Because I think this next segment might be kind of short anyway.
Sure.
It's this. I call it the Apple tax. If you look, they are so secretive about the technology they put in their computers and their phones. And then they charge you a premium when you can build your own and still, even today, save a good chunk of money. And I'm not saying they're not powerful machines, because the nice ones still are. They have a lot of juice in them. But they charge you that Apple tax, right? Like, I remember looking at that just out of curiosity when I was building my PC, and similar specs in a Mac, those all-in-one Macs, whatever those are called. They're like the Mac Pro, I think. I don't know. I don't know the names.
Something
anyway,
like
it's
that,
the all-in-one screen. It's something like that. It would have cost me an extra like $900 or like $8 something, and it's like, it's ridiculous.
Well,
now, granted,
that's competition
you don't have to put it
for
together.
You, though. Yeah, you have to put it together, and that's awesome. But that's competition for you. So if you want macOS, then you have to go through Apple to do that. Versus so on the PC spectrum, if you want a Windows, you can get it from any number of companies, right? You can get it from. Actually, I built mine. I'm looking around, like what are the companies? But like I mentioned, like Dell before, like Dell's one. HP is one. You can have any number of company is making these computers. that isn't like Microsoft, right? So that if you want the Windows OS, you can get it from any number of computer manufacturer. On the phone side of things, Android is owned by Google, but you can get a Galaxy, you can get an LG, you can get a Windows. Actually, does Windows run its own OS? Is there I don't actually know.
Yeah. Well, there used to be. Not anymore.
Yeah, that might have changed recently. But anyway, there's any number of competitors that you can get, but they all use Android. Or on the PC side, any number of competitors, but they all use Windows. On Mac, if you want to use Mac OS, that's only coming from Apple. So they charge a premium for it.
They definitely do. They definitely do. And I know they used to have that stigma too, which I have always fought against because I've always done it on Windows and I will never leave my Windows, which is Macs are if you're not a real artist unless you use a MacBook or you're not or a real creator or whatever. It's like, that is such BS. Like, all it really boils down to is like the juice you have in it that makes sure that you can process and do what you need to do. Because like most programs are cross-compatible with a few exceptions. And now I know in my world, especially with like the audio industry, for a long time it was you need to use Pro Tools on a Mac. And you need to use Logic on a Mac, which is Logic in particular as a DAW, it's exclusive to Mac. But now everything, just like video editors, there's not one standard anymore. Premiere is a big one, but it's not the only one. There's the DaVinci, whatever.
DaVinci's a big one.
Know nothing about. But there's a lot of pro editors out there, especially in the audio space. It's like that are cross compatible. Like just pick your poison and go for it. I just felt like that was so like gatekeepy.
You're right, because you're talking about artists. A great painter can paint great works with any paintbrush you give them.
Exact. That was beautiful. That was a little profound.
Ish.
Ish. Hey, let's move on. Weston, you and I are going to be doing a quick little tier list of some of our Microsoft Windows applications of old and of new.
Oh, interesting.
We'll be right back. Hey guys, exciting news. We have just launched our Patreon. So what does that mean for you? Well, for only $1 a month, you'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes content from Weston and I, bonus bite-sized podcast episodes where you'll get the full, unplugged, and unedited Alex and Weston experience, and lastly, an exclusive Q&A where you'll have the freedom to ask your burning questions and we will answer them on the podcast. All for just $1 a month. So, if you want to support the show and get these extra goodies, head on over to patreon.com/Profoundish. Hey, we're back. Weston, I want you to know that I took the time and I made this because there were, believe it or not, on the tier list website, I searched for like an hour. I couldn't find any applications. I could find a couple games.
Sure.
I could find some like with operating systems, but I thought that'd be kind of boring to rank. So I thought, why not some popular applications that are on Windows, because we're both Windows guys, and some of these logos that we'll see here, I'll read them in just a second, vary on version. I'm not going to limit it to whatever version you see on screen. It can just be our memories of these applications of any iteration.
Okay.
So what we've got here is we got Microsoft, we got Paint, Excel, Movie Maker. That one's near and dear to your heart. Well, so is Paint for that matter.
Yeah.
I did keep a couple kind of like games in here. I do have Solitaire.
Oh.
Internet Explorer, PowerPoint, Minesweeper, Word, and then Sound Recorder. So we can rank these however we'd like. I just figured we can just kind of come to an agreement the best we can just based on our backgrounds.
We're not ranking these in a tier list as if each one of these applications were a sexy lady. How dateable would they be?
Shut up. Are you gonna give me crap for that every single time we do a tier list? It's like, I did think about something though with that.
I think it would be kind of funny though. I just like now if these things were sexy ladies, how smoochable are they?
Okay,
I don't know how I would take that, but like I don't know. What a fun twist. Look, we don't have to do that this time or whatever, but what a fun twist on the typical tier list, just in general. Because you've seen tier lists on YouTube or whatever, where it's like, oh yeah, these are video games or movies or whatever. But it's like, it's not, okay, say it was like video games. It's not just video games. What if the video games were sexy ladies? I don't know. It's just...
No, trust me. We've done it before a couple times. And then we've also done how well they do in a fight.
We've done that
like
one
weird
for sure.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. What if
I
we
just feel
did a tournament like Paint versus Excel? Who would win in a fight? Like,
we could do it. Oh my gosh. Well, do you want to have any particular grounds that we do base these off of, or would you rather? Because I'm open to that. Because these won't take long to go through, I don't think.
This is your episode, really. Like, we can go through it straight and just determine the merits of each. Because already it's kind of, so the applications that you've listed, like, curiously, I'm wondering what you would say makes something like a D category versus an S. Like, is it just how often we use these, or like their functionality? I am kind of curious a little bit what your take on what would constitute, because to me, some of these I'm going to give an S tier, but it's just like, well, I use them and they're nostalgic and like they belong there. But like, do they? I don't know.
I was kind of thinking it very loosely. I didn't come up with a particular way to rank them, kind of on purpose, just to kind of chat about that with you. I figured it could just be based on our feelings about them, how often we use them, just kind of like you said, maybe, or how little we use them, and overall functionality, just kind of like what you said. And I figured we could just kind of feel it out and see.
So here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna do a tier list of which ones are the best, and then whatever we have in the S category. And if there aren't enough in the S category, it'll be the S and the A category. And we're going to determine between the two of us which two are the sexiest ladies. And then between those two, which one of the sexy ladies would win in a fight.
Let's do that. That'll be a fun twist. No, seriously. I'm not kidding. The top two S's, or the top S and A, if it's going to be like that, we do need to see which ones would represent a sexier lady and which one would win in a mud fight. Done.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's what it is.
All right, so there's our twist. Okay. So we'll just feel this out, though, in the meantime. Let's start with Paint. I know that's a near and dear application to you.
Oh, yes.
We've all used Paint.
Oh, Paint. I love you so. Whether or not you're a young child and you've discovered Paint for the first time and you're just making your magnum opus, whatever it's called, you're making your masterpiece with, the brush tool and the little paint bucket tool and erasing smiley faces and such. Or you're, going into college and you're me and you're making full-blown YouTube thumbnails inside of Paint, and anything in between. And you know what's really cool about Paint, if this is any iteration of Paint, is that some people out there, if you're not using Paint anymore, you might not know this. It's been out for years now, but there's Paint 3D now that allows you to do so much more. You can actually create within a 3D space and move things on top of or behind each other and create backgrounds, and you can put stickers on things and you can make things your own sticker. You can actually not chroma key, but key color out things. You can smart remove backgrounds all within Paint. Paint is wild now, incredible. And I still use Paint today for neat random niche things that I'm like, I have the mental capacity to figure out how to do this on a different program. I'll throw it in Paint.
When it comes to nostalgia, Paint is one of the quintessential nostalgic Microsoft apps. Like, I know, like, it still exists now, and or at least 3D does. I don't know if normal Paint does.
It does.
Do they coincide, or is
they coincide? Unless this is different on newer OSs, on my computer, if you open up Paint, regular Paint, there's actually a button that says "Open in Paint 3D." So, like, it's it's technically a different application, but one can lead to the other.
Right, but I think for sheer, because everything you said about Paint, I mean, it's true. Like, I remember just being very young and just drawing on it. And one thing that I love to do is I'd love to make shapes, because you had like the circle tool, the square tool, and or like the rectangle tool. Anyway, and I would like layer them on top of each other, and then I would use the paint bucket and put different colors in, and they would intersect at places, and I'd put a different color in those intersections, and I just felt like I was Picasso, right?
When I was working on my video game, that 2D platformer, I was making all my sprites in Paint.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Listen, it's pretty functional. I mean, just for nostalgia reasons, and just for overall functionality. I mean, you think about it. You were editing videos. You literally did a high school video. You did a music video, and you did editing in Paint.
No, I didn't do any edit. Oh. You can't video edit in Paint. I'm sorry to break this to you, Alex, but I was making thumbnails. Paint was amazing. You got ahead of yourself.
Weren't you using Paint?
Well, I was using Paint, but not to
Paint to
not to video edit. That's Movie Maker.
I know you. No, I know you can edit, but I mean, I guess what I mean is like you took screenshots from Paint and put them in your video.
Oh yeah, like the safety dance.
I guess that's kind of what I meant.
I made I made art and I put them into my videos. Yes, I made JPEGs. Yeah, I know what you're saying now because I did that safety dance music video. Yeah, I made I did that.
Hey, that could be something maybe our Patreon viewers can see, huh?
I wish they could. I think it's lost. I think it's lost media. If I can find it, I'll put it up. But I, honest to God, think it's gone forever now. So I don't want to tantalize all of you and then
make
fail.
Promises.
I'm pretty sure because I had the safety dance and I had walk like an Egyptian, and I think they are both lost to time. Actually, I take it back. The safety dance, no. One of them, I think it might be Walk Like an Egyptian, might be private on my YouTube channel. So I'll go looking. But it's not nearly as... It didn't have the paint elements that Safety Dance had. So I'll have to go looking.
It didn't have the same oomph.
Yeah, I think Safety Dance is gone. Dance. Safety Dance had the benefit of me twerking on camera for everybody, if you remember that.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. How could I forget? Hey, we digress here. I'm thinking S or A. It's Paint, for God's sake. What do you...
S for Paint. Paint.
All right. We have Excel next. We're going to kind of breeze through these because we're kind of short on time. But do you have a lot to say about Excel? I don't.
I used it for a few things, for sure, but it's not something I used a lot. It's good for stat tracking, but like to this day, I'm more of I use Google Sheets, which isn't Excel. It's like Google's a competitor or whatever. And even then, I don't use it a lot. Excel's fine, but like I wasn't a spreadsheet nerd, so I think Excel's like, I don't know, C. It's not that it's bad. It's probably great at what it does, but like it's not like, I don't know.
I know it can be very powerful if you know how to use it.
Yeah. For that,
just like with Google Sheets. Yeah.
Yeah. For that sake, it's probably way more functional than Google Sheets, but like, I don't know what to do with it. I guess it should probably be like if you're a super nerd, it should be like higher, but like, I don't know. I don't have any.
But we're not basing it. Feelings. We're not basing it on how good or bad they are. We're really putting in kind of like our own opinions,
our own
and
emotional
and usage of it and
to
stuff. So, speaking of emotional attachment,
Movie Maker.
Windows Movie Maker.
Windows Movie Maker, baby. One video track, 2 audio tracks, and that's it. Good luck.
It was so many people's first editor. It was mine. It was my introduction into. I remember I had the thoughts before I knew it existed because the little genius I was. Right. I remember thinking, I've got a camera. How can I plug it into a computer and do stuff on there with it? I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew that but I think I saw maybe like a behind the scenes video or like commentary on a DVD of some movie, and I saw them doing it. I'm like, how do you do this, right? And then eventually Windows Movie Maker was the answer. And I don't know. There's that iconic blue screen with white text. Like, it's iconic now. You know it when you see it. Old YouTube videos would have it. It's like, my top 10 favorite video games, and it was just that blue screen. You know what I'm talking about.
Look, there's just so little that you could do with it that, everything had to look relatively the same. I don't know. But
at the time, it felt like I was doing so much with it. At the time, I really felt like the world was at my fingertips. Like I was entering a whole new world. I remember feeling that way at the time. I was like 9 or whatever.
And it worked like remarkably well as far as I remember. Like you and I had a lot of issues with Magix being like the buggiest thing on the planet. Movie Maker, I don't remember being buggy. It couldn't do anything complex, so that's probably why. But like it did what it could do, and that's what it did.
Windows Movie Maker, to compare it to something kind of romantic, it's like you could be with like the bad boy unpredictable, wild. Maybe doesn't always come home at night. Just kind of out and about. You never know what he's been up to. He's kind of a rough around the edges and just very unpredictable. Or you could, but he's hot, right? That I should mention that he's hot. He's like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Or you could play the safe route, end up with the 5 or a 6, reliable, always there, and it kind of grows on you over time.
The downside is that while Movie Maker is reliable, they also aren't an overachiever in any sense, right? Like they've got just a minimum wage job. They're not very pretty. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like they are the most like C average possible. They're not failing anything. They're just like not remarkable in any way.
Right.
But
that's true.
I loved it though. I loved Movie Maker. I loved that it was a free application that could get you started. Yep. It's what got me started. It's what introduced me to the fact that you have to export your videos, not just save them. That's why almost everything I made on Windows Movie Maker is like lost media at this point, because I would save them and I assumed that I have a movie now. I don't. I didn't export it. It's if you don't have Windows Movie Maker, you can't play it.
I remember not understanding the concept at the time.
Yeah.
I remember we had a mutual friend of ours who explained it to me. I mean, he didn't call it exporting at the time, but he said, you could put these on YouTube. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because YouTube was super new when I was using this. And I remember trying to watch how I did it, and it's probably literally just file, export as, or whatever. But I'm assuming. But once again, we're kids. I didn't know how he did it. And I was trying to do it later on one of my own videos, and I just couldn't figure it out. I would keep saving it. I would save as. I remember one time I saved it as like JPEG or something, and it was like 1 million frames of like images or something like that. I think I have a memory of that. I could be making that up, but I think I have a memory of that. And I don't know. But that's kind of the fun of it. That's a lot of my nostalgia is tied to it. It's like just exploring the unknown, kind of the excitement of kind of putting these videos together, even if you didn't know how to export it. It was just fun. You could put music on there and all that. Text. The text was super fun. For that reason, the memory's sake, I mean, I'm still thinking up there with Paint, maybe A or S.
I'm giving it an A for me. That's where I'm at.
I'm feeling A. That's good. Let's keep rolling here. All right, Solitaire. What do you got?
Solitaire, so I have some memories of Solitaire, but not, I tried to play it, but it never captured me. But my dad would play it when we were kids, and I think he had Spider Solitaire, so, the spider backs or whatever. And, if you finished through the game, you'd have that crazy card cascade that looked really fun and cool and stuff, but, I don't know. It never captured me. It's just there.
Neither.
It's just there, is what it is. It's a game that's just there.
There are a lot of Solitaire lovers out there, so
yeah.
I bet you our decision here isn't going to be good. But, I mean, I would personally, I've used it so little. I think I tried it once and never tried it again. My mom loved it, kind of like your dad did. But, I mean, for me, I'm putting it definitely doesn't deserve a D because it does what it does well, I guess. But, I'd put it below Excel, though. I've used Excel much more than I've played Solitaire.
I was going to say D, but you can put it in C. That's fine.
I just feel bad putting D. Solitaire doesn't deserve it.
I don't know. I guess I just got no love for little old Solitaire.
Well, let's move on right now. How about, no, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Internet Explorer.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk for a quick second about this. So if you ask anybody now, Internet Explorer is laughed at. Right.
Well, anybody
now. And it
now,
was for the last 5-6 years.
Anybody now, it's like there is no Internet Explorer. It's Microsoft Edge.
Which apparently is really good.
Apparently.
That's what I've heard. I've heard if you give it a chance.
I exclusively use Edge to open user. PDFs. That's it.
Same, though. For real. But there was a time where, Internet Explorer was kind of the standard. And
that was how you explored the internet. That was the internet,
right.
Was Internet Explorer. So way back in the day, there was no hate for Internet Explorer. That was how you got on the internet.
Out of all these applications that we're talking about today, Internet Explorer is, I feel like, the only one that's had a complete shift in reputation, though. We always knew what Movie Maker was, and we always knew what Paint is, and all these other ones. But Internet Explorer kind of went from being, this is what you use to go on the internet, to like in its final years, it's like, you use Internet Explorer? Are you kidding me? You know,
I think it's just because its competitors that came later just got so good. Firefox was incredibly secure. Chrome was incredibly fast. If you're crazy and you like to use Opera, it's heavily feature rich. And then again, if you're on Mac, it's Safari. But like, yeah, its competitors just got so good that Internet Explorer got left in the dust. And that's literally the meme, is that it's slow. So I think it's just something that, it got a bad reputation, which is why Microsoft wanted to change to Edge. Because actually, the later years of Internet Explorer was not bad. If you did go onto Internet Explorer, like, it was relatively secure and it was relatively fast. Like, it was fine, but it had a horrible reputation. But honestly, for what it was back in the day and what it eventually could get to, like, it wasn't bad. It's like, I don't know, a B or something.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because I thought, you know what, like, I don't have like strong memories like, oh, I loved Internet Explorer, but I know that I used it for probably at least like 8 years of my computer using, you know, or something like that. So, and it never steered me wrong. I don't know. I'm totally fine with a B. I think it's good. Now, we got PowerPoint. Now, PowerPoint is something that I haven't touched in years, but I used it a lot in school.
Yeah.
We used to do projects where you could just do like literally like a PowerPoint presentation instead of like just a standard like oral presentation. I remember I did that a few times for like books that we read.
Yeah.
I remember we read that book. I can't remember what book it was. I think every class did, but tell me if I'm wrong. This was like maybe 7th grade. Something to do with yellow fever. I remember there was a big thing about that. There's a book about it.
I kind of vaguely remember
it was
that, but I don't remember what it was called at all.
But I just remember any chance I could, if I couldn't do a video, PowerPoint for me was second place. And this one I couldn't do a video for, but I could do PowerPoint. And I remember like you could customize it and, you know, yellow fever. And I made it all, you know, I made the text yellow because I was cool and original and, you know, all the other things that are not true about me. And, but anyway, I really enjoyed it, but I haven't used it since school. And I think I opened it up once or twice since just to kind of look at it. And now it almost looks kind of like a confusing mess.
Oh, does it?
But maybe it's just because I've kind of unlearned it.
Because
I don't know.
To my memory, and I haven't actually used Windows PowerPoint or Microsoft PowerPoint in a long time, but PowerPoint, I use so many Google things. I use Google Docs. I use Google Sheets.
Yep.
Google Slides is the competitor to PowerPoint. And PowerPoint is perhaps the only Microsoft product that I actually miss compared to, I use Google Docs. I don't really miss Word. I use Google Sheets, and I don't really miss Excel. PowerPoint is better than Slides. So like PowerPoint has that going for it to my memory.
Well, and I don't think anyone really has anything bad to say about it. Like, PowerPoint does what it sets out to do. And it is still, like, a pretty big standard. Like, I know a lot of, like, big corporations. I know, like, we use them when I used to work for a bigger corporation. I know in Steph's job, they do PowerPoints and stuff. You know, I would probably gravitate towards Google Sheets. I've never touched it, so I don't know. But I just would, because everything else in my ecosystem is also Google.
Yeah, Google Slides, yeah.
But you don't hear anything bad about PowerPoint, and you know, and it's a standard. So I have more fond memories of it over Internet Explorer.
Yeah,
like I would probably put it above that. What are you thinking?
I was gonna say it's an A category. Like, it's just goofy, and like it was the standard like presentation app. So I was gonna call it an A. You know, I would obviously put it below Movie Maker, but like, yeah, I'd give it an A myself.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. Now let's talk about the game that changed the world.
Minesweeper.
I flippin' loved mine. I still love Minesweeper.
Minesweeper, look, okay, flat out, got cards on the table. It's top of S, so like we can talk about it, but that's where it's gonna go. Like if you know,
I'm totally fine with this.
You know what's wild is so many people to this day still don't know how Minesweeper works. The Minesweeper was the first game I ever streamed. People don't know that.
That's awesome.
It was a test stream when I was learning the technology. I'm like, I don't know how to stream, so I need to figure that out. So I don't want to play a game that requires any like attention, because all the attention is going to figuring out how to stream. I'll just pull up Minesweeper and learn to stream. And that first stream, I had one dude that stuck through almost the entire stream from like midnight to 2 in the morning, and me playing Minesweeper. We were chatting for a while, but I'm like, there are so many people that if you play Minesweeper, people will pop in like, oh, Minesweeper? Like, what is that? It's so funny that I know it exists, but I don't know how to play. So many people don't know how to play it.
Yeah.
They would just open the app, click buttons, eventually blow up, and that was their experience. I'm like, bro, you didn't learn how to play Minesweeper?
I probably didn't know the actual rules till like high school. Because that's my memories. I still loved it, but I thought, oh, it's just a game of chance. You click and hope you don't explode, right? And I loved it. And then I learned the rules, and it made it even more fun.
You're like, oh, the 10 numbers years after, mean something. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know, and I knew they meant something, but I thought like I never took the time just to learn. And it's not a hard concept at all, but just for one reason or another, I never took the time. But yeah, Minesweeper totally deserves top of S. I love it. All right, this is a standard again. We got Microsoft Word. Now, I will say I'm with you. I use Docs. That's my whole ecosystem now is the Google Suite or whatever you want to call it. But Word, I still use from time to time for stuff at work and stuff. So I mean, like I like Word. It's still Word has always been Word.
Yeah. Word is great. The application itself these days is bulkier than I would like, but like it's because it's been doing what it's been doing for so long that it's very dense. So like if you're an author or you're a writer, everything you could possibly want is in Word. You don't need anything else. It's there. Whereas if you use Google Docs like I do, it is lacking in a few things. Like if you're going to be a professional writer, you can absolutely use Docs, but like you're going to have to make a few concessions, and you're going to have to know that there are some like weird, when it comes to publishing, there are some weird things you're going to just have to learn to do. But you won't have to do that with with Word. Word is just it is the best in its category, just bar none. It's not free.
I agree with that.
So when you talk about free applications, then you kind of you're like, well, Docs. I think Google Docs, in my opinion, is the best free application. I think there's a free version of what's essentially Word. I think it's called like Libra or something like that. So like that exists. I don't have any experience with it, but Word is great. I think Word for everything it does, for me, it's gonna end in S category.
Okay, well, I'll meet you there. I was thinking somewhere in A anyway, just because it's so good at what it does. I'm just thinking about the personal element. But then again, I'm going to give it a second thought because I used it so much growing up. Google Docs didn't exist 12 years ago, or at least I didn't use it 12 years ago. And
it didn't exist 12 years ago, don't worry.
So, I mean, I will put it in S tier, but just because of the sheer amount of fun I've had with Paint and Minesweeper, I don't think I can put it above.
Yeah, because Word isn't sexy or glamorous, so I get it. But if you start really getting into the weeds, kind of like how we don't appreciate Excel, because even though it can probably do like so much, Word, I've gone into the weeds and like it is very capable. So it's like if you want to do that,
I believe it.
It's a powerhouse. If you don't, if you're someone who just, like you would be happy to use WordPad, then, Word isn't going to give you anything. But like, if you really want to, it's there.
Right. I believe it. Okay. Last one. I don't know how much experience you have with this. I added this one just because I have some experience with it, but it's Windows Sound Recorder. It still exists, but now I think it's called like Voice Recorder. I added the old screenshot of it because this is my memories of it, is this old thing. Did you ever use the sound recorder to play any audio?
Believe it or not, well, to play audio, if I did, I didn't know that that's what it was using. Like you open up an audio file and it plays on something. Today it might be like media player or whatever. But like to my knowledge, I'm not familiar with sound recorder as a program or as an app. If I ever used it, I didn't really know that I was using it. I've never really been an audio guy on the computer, so that doesn't surprise me if I had it and I just didn't know it.
Right. Well, I have a very short story to tell. It was, if my timeline lines up correctly, this was a couple years after my parents divorced. So, and I remember there'd be times where I missed my dad or whatever. And my dad's always, like I said earlier in this episode, he's always been pretty good with keeping up with technology. And this would have been in the late 90s. I mean, I was still using Windows 98 or whatever. And I remember it must have been my mom. He used to send her emails of these little goofy songs he'd record, and he'd send them to me when he was like, when I didn't see him. And they'd be silly little 6-year-old boy humor, like, boogers and butts and all that stuff. But he had these cute little songs that he would make and send them to me. And they'd be compatible with Sound Recorder. And then I figured out how to eventually just kind of like use my mom had like this, we might have had him at our school too, but that was always a nice memory. But I started to use the Sound Recorder myself to, my mom had like those really cheap microphones you'd plug in. Like you'd see a lot of them in maybe like an old call center in the 90s. Like just an old, maybe not a call center, but it's like an old not lavalier. What's it called?
It sits on the
it's
desk.
A mic
and
that's
it's
got
like
a base.
Yeah, it's got a base, and it's like a
it looks like
snake.
a sink. It looks like a faucet almost.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's something like that. My mom had one of those, I remember, for a while, and I would like record my voice in it, and you could like change the pitch. And that was kind of my early stages of working with an audio workstation. So I have some fond memories of it. They're not nearly as fond as some others, but if you don't have a strong opinion, I'd probably want to put it, I would say, just for the sheer memories alone and what it ended up meaning to me now as an audio person, probably A. Maybe back of A.
I'll take your word
PowerPoint?
for it. I don't have the experience with it. I'll take your word for it. Put it in A. You can't just drop that lore dump about how you used to use it, and I'm going to be like, no, it belongs in D.
Yeah, well, I think we got it lined up here. Let me read these really quick here. So we got in the S category, and then we got one thing to do at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
In the S category, we've got Minesweeper, Paint, and Word. I think that works. In A, we've got Movie Maker, PowerPoint, and Sound Recorder. And right in the middle in B, we got Internet Explorer. And then in C, we've got Excel and Solitaire. I think based on our experiences and what we like, I think this makes sense.
I think it makes sense. Everyone can be proud that nothing made it into D. The nerds out there are frothing that Excel got rated so low, and the meme lords are puzzled about Explorer making it to B. But I think we're okay.
Yeah. I think other than those two groups of people, I think we're going to do okay. Now, Weston.
Yes.
The top two are Minesweeper and Paint.
I say the S category is Minesweeper, Paint, and Word. Of those three, which two?
We're doing all three? Okay.
Well, that's what I mean. Which two of the S category are the sexiest ladies? So between Minesweeper, Paint, and Word, which two are the sexy ladies? I think it's Minesweeper and Paint.
I think so.
I don't think Word is the sexiest lady of the three. So I think Minesweeper and Paint are the sexiest ladies of these applications.
Yeah.
But which one would win in a fight?
They're both. Well, mud wrestling specifically.
Which one would
bikini
win
mud wrestling.
in a bikini mud wrestling battle? Minesweeper
They're
or
both
Paint?
going to be sexy.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we just know it.
Oh yeah. I this was set up from the beginning. It's got to go to Minesweeper, right? Like the whole Minesweeper is already combative and aggressive, real competitor right here.
Yeah.
But also mines under the dirt, right? Under the mud.
Yeah, you're right.
I think Minesweeper is the sexiest woman of these apps that would beat you in a mud wrestling bikini battle.
You know what's funny? It just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
It really does. But God, it would be an attractive fight, wouldn't it? I'd watch it. I'd watch Paint fight Minesweeper.
I would too. I want to see that. Can we get someone like, what is that on YouTube? Like you've got like Internet Chan and Safari San or whatever. Like it's all the like explore like the internet explorers or whatever, like turn into anime girls. That's like a thing on the internet. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I want to see that. I want to see that with Paint and Minesweeper.
Get on it. Anyone listening, get on that. But for now, we're gonna head out. This was a good tier list, Weston. Thank you for joining me with this. I appreciate it.
Of course, I am contractually obligated to be here.
It's true. It is in writing. Weston, where can people find you on the internet?
WestonHasty.com is my landing page for all the things that I do. Currently, if you want to find me doing like the most, like the thing that I do the most is my gaming channel over on YouTube. I stream on YouTube. No, not Twitch. I tell people that I stream and they're like, what's your Twitch? I'm like, don't worry about that. My YouTube is Magic Man Mo. That's where you can get my streams, my videos, my shorts, all of my content. You can come hang out and chat about whatever. I might be playing some stupid point and click game that like looks like, you know, a Flash game from out of the from the mid 2000s, and that's because it probably is. You can swing by, be confused, and chat, and it's great, and it's a lot of fun. Alex, where do we find you?
Well, you can find me, my website. You can always go there as my landing page. It's alexduquette.net. There's two primary things I'll plug. First thing is my medleys. I make, if you don't know what a medley is, it's basically what I do is I take from pop culture, usually it's cartoons and other TV shows, I take their theme songs and I take little pieces of each theme song and smash them all up and together into one song. It's kind of like a mashup, but with like 20 songs. It's super fun. I'd love it if you check those out. You can go on a little nostalgia trip. You can find it on my website, or you can type in my name, Alex Duquette, on YouTube. If you're also hanging out on YouTube, you can also look up one of my newer ventures, but a very much a passion project of mine called VGM Quest. It's I do video game soundtrack retrospectives. Is probably the best way to describe it. I've currently covered the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time soundtrack and Donkey Kong Country's soundtrack. So if you want some good content to kind of chew on for a little bit and kind of think about the music like I like to do, go check those videos out. That'd mean a lot. In terms of Profoundish, you can find us in all the social media places you think you could at Profoundish Pod. You can check us out there anywhere you're listening or consuming the show. If there's a way to leave a comment, or if there's a way to leave a rating or a review or a like, any place you're doing that, please show that support to us. It really helps get the show to new eyes, and it's a great way to show us some love. Another great way to show us some love is our Patreon, patreon.com/Profoundish, or is it Profoundish Pod, Weston? Is there a pod at the end of that?
No pod, just Profoundish.
Profoundish. So some behind-the-scenes stuff you can see. You can hear some little mini episodes where we have some chats that you can only hear there, and other random little exclusive content as well. So make sure you go support us there. It's by far the best way to show us your support. That really would mean a whole lot. But that's all for now. We're going to head out. Weston and I are going to go buy Macs and try and use those for a while.
Ha!
Just kidding. All right, guys. We will see you on the next one. And until then.
All right.
All right.